Hello again, I'm Robert Fithin, and I mentioned in a few videos that last year I had kind of changed the way I buy vinyl records, started buying more collections and in bulk, started going back to rummage sales, which I hadn't done since I was like about a teenager, I guess, and actually discovered estate sales and the joy of that, and that's been going on for a while. I've done pretty well. I really love going back to the way you just kind of see that they've got records for sale. You get in there, you don't know what you're going to find, you don't know what kind of prices they're going to be, and I've gotten some really good deals. And one of the last ones I went to, incredible deals, $3 for every record, no matter what it was. And I actually got this among some other things that I'll show you coming up. Yes, it is the Germs album from 1979. This is a second pressing, $3 for this. And if you want to buy it online or Discogs or whatever, it is going to cost you quite a bit more than $3. And this is pretty much in near mint, if not at least excellent condition. You can see it's the second pressing there. It's still on the original label before they switched over to the generic slash logo label. The difference between the second and first pressings are the second pressing has the inner sleeve like this with the lyrics. The first pressing just has a white inner sleeve, and then this lyrics thing here is just a sheet. So that's the main difference there, but it sounds great. I can't believe how good this sounds for like a hardcore punk album. There's a lot of bass, a lot of fullness, and of course none of it takes away from Darby Cratch's snarling vocal of, like the Germs ever since the days that I had this, the complete Germs on the CD there that came out. I believe this came out in '93. I got this probably a week or two after it came out. Used to play this all the time. I was around, I don't know, 20, 21 years old or something like that. I got that. But yeah, an original Germs album. Just excellent. I could not believe, again, $3 for everything I'm going to show in this video. And this, of course, has, this is pretty much the Germs only album, so it has all of their big songs on it, if you want to call it. They don't really have hit singles or anything, but they do have some popular tunes for them. And this pretty much has them all. Everything from, Richie Dagger's Crime. He could take on all your woes. He could salt swagger, taking all your whoa. Anyway, yeah, so it has that. It has a Lexicon Devil. I like the single version of Lexicon Devil a little better, but, you can't have it all. 10 songs on side one because most songs are just under or just a little over 2 minutes long. And then, of course, you get the 9-minute long Shutdown song to finish off side two. So a great hardcore punk album. Some credit this as one of the very first hardcore punk albums that was, released as a full album. And so, yeah, the Germs, featuring, of course, also Pat Smear later of, kind of like the second part of Nirvana, where he was more of a touring guy, and then, of course, a member of the Foo Fighters. So, yeah, awesome. Sad with Darby Crash committing the word I can't use on YouTube anymore, but he did unfortunately commit that, and passed away the day before John Lennon's death. So, not a good week for rock music, but yeah, rest in peace, Darby Crash. But great to have the Germs. I still can't believe $3 for this. And now I'll tell my little story of that estate sale. So if you just want to continue on to the records, just skip ahead 2 minutes or whatever. So estate sales work like this. Sometimes they will hand out line numbers before the sale, and it's usually about an hour before the sale. Now, if the sale starts at like 9 o'clock and you want to get records, good ones, at least in this area, you have to get there really early, like hours early. Like I'm talking 5 o'clock in the morning. You want to be like first, second, or maybe third in line. If you're not, and there's like record people ahead of you, they're going to run in and just grab up everything, and you're not going to be able to get anything. That's how it works. It gets vicious. So it's about as vicious as this album. It's great. You crank this up, by the way. The only way to listen to this is loud. Anyway, so yeah, you want to get there early. So this particular estate sale did things a little bit differently, though. They had line numbers 3 hours before the sale, which usually doesn't happen. Usually it's only like an hour. You get the line number, then you just sit in your car, because if you're me and you live, farther away, you're not going to be able to go back home and then come back. It's only an hour. So this was, they announced that they're going to hand out the line numbers at 6 a.m. The sale doesn't start till 9. So you can actually go get your number and then go back home and then go back to the sale. So 6 a.m. So I get there a little before 5. And I wasn't sure if that was going to be early enough because it's only an hour or so earlier before the line numbers. But I thought, I'm not going to pull in at like 3 a.m. in the morning. Some people did. So I get there at a little before that. Come to find out, the line numbers had been put out on the porch like the night before, and I was number 26. Now, the whole time I've been going to estate sales, I haven't been anything like farther back than like number 4. Usually I'm number 2, number 3, sometimes I'm number 1. If I get there like super early and just I'm in my car the whole time waiting for hours and hours, that's what you have to do to get the good deals. So like number 26, I went home, I almost didn't go back. Come to find out, you know, they put out the line numbers way before they said they were going to. Like I said, like the night before. Some people called ahead and made sure. I didn't do that. I just took them for their word. 6 o'clock means 6 o'clock. Gee, what a fool I was. And so I get there, I'm number 26, and I almost didn't go back, but I figured, you know, why not? There's no other sales that day. And so, you know, it's early in the morning. I don't have anything else to do. Not supposed to be at work, you know, yet or whatever. So I get there and, you know, I'm being literally laughed at. Like, number 26, I called first. I made sure. You got to know how to play the game, dude. And I'm like, oh my God, really? So I did go back. I decided to go back. And the way this estate sale looked in the picture for the records, there were like about 7 huge stacks of records on this table, which looked like it was in a basement. And so like the stacks were really high. So there was like 1,000 records in this place. They were all stacked horizontally. So, you know, of course you can't, they're not easy to look through if they're all stacked, you know, like that. And so, like I said, like about 7 stacks of records, about 4 record guys ahead of me, they're all running in there and they let the first 25 people in. So the line, it stops right before me and I've got to stand there and wait like 5 or 6 minutes before they let me in. I finally get in there. Sure enough, there's a guy, he's already halfway, 3/4 of the way through a stack over on the left. There's a guy on the right. There's a guy on stack on the floor. They're almost all the way through their stacks. They're just, you know, that's the way record. You got to be fast. You got to be vicious. There's a guy somewhat in one of the middle stacks. Nobody looks like they're finding much of anything. I see religious records flying everywhere. I see old country albums that nobody really wants, like Del Reeves and Skeeter Davis and whatever. I mean, not like quality. I mean, like country stuff that nobody, you know, and nobody cares about. And, you know, cheap records that everybody already had, just So I get a stack that looks like nobody's been through it. And I get through the first like 5 or 6 records. They're not anything. And then I start seeing like Cream and the Allman Brothers Band and Joni Mitchell and Devo. And then I see this. And I pretty much, you know, I see a bunch of other stuff that I'll show too. But I pretty much became a celebrity of this estate sale. It got around that somebody found a Germs album. Did you get that guy over there got a Germs album? Are you the guy with the Germs album? No, it's the guy over there. Are you the guy with the Germs album? Yeah, I got the Germs album. Can I see it? You know, it was like, yeah, can I touch it? So yeah, it was cool to be the guy that found the Germs album. That's who I was that day. Also found this, Bob Marley and the Wailers, Exodus. Another guy that was there found some good stuff too. He like found Richard Hell and the Voidoids and stuff. So there was another guy there. He's a cool guy too. I'm glad he found some good stuff. He found a couple Bob Marley albums. I already had those anyway, but I did not have this one on vinyl. I had this on CD. But Exodus from 1977, probably one of his, if not his most popular studio album. It's a you know, Bob Marley albums are Bob Marley albums. They're great, great reggae, great you know, just kind of relaxing. Back in the day, it was you know, relaxing with a big, you know, joint or something. But yeah, Bob Marley and the Wailers, Exodus. Glad I got this. Another one that is in great condition. And you want these in great condition because you don't want a lot of scratchiness when you're listening to Bob Marley because the music is so kind of like bass and delicate and whatever. So, but yeah, the first side of this has a lot of songs that really are only on this album. Natural Mystic and So Much Things to Say and like more of a political kind of thing. And then side 2 is where all the songs that everybody knows are. A lot of them were on the Legend album that everybody has, the big compilation. One Love, People Get Ready is on here. That finishes off the album. You got Jammin', Hope You Like Jammin' Too. And Exodus, actually Exodus on the title track's on side 1, Exodus, Movement of the Jaw People. This was actually made right after Bob Marley had that assassination attempt where somebody shot at him and like grazed his chest or whatever. So yeah, he wanted to make a big exodus, I guess. Waiting in Vain, I Don't Want to Wait in Vain for Your Love. You know, a lot of love songs and you know, like upbeat, positive, like, you know, songs on side 2. And Three Little Birds, everything's gonna be all right, every little thing's gonna be all right. Do do, Three Little Birds. Great song for kids, letting them know, hey, don't worry, everything's gonna be all right. A nice sentiment. Of course, we know everything's not gonna be all right. The world's going to hell in a handbasket, but it's a nice song. Got nice music to it. You get a nice little thing there at the bottom of the inner sleeve showing you his other albums on Island up to that time, but. Yeah, really, really like this album. I've always liked this, but like I said, only ever had it on CD, never actually had the actual vinyl of this, and so glad to finally have Exodus from Bob Marley. And again, for $3, so could not pass that up. Also from 1977, picked up this album for $3, Tom Waits and Foreign Affairs. My first Tom Waits record. I never had a Tom Waits record before. I had a couple of CDs. I think I started off with the wrong ones, though. I was never really into Tom Waits, but this is quite the treasure. This is not the kind of thing that you can listen to, I don't think, while you're at work, which I tried to do once. It's not the kind of thing you listen to while house cleaning or whatever. This is something you sit down and really have to absorb to appreciate this album. It definitely commands your full attention. You have to pay attention to the lyrics and really get into it. It's definitely not for everyone, and it's definitely not for all occasions. But yeah, Tom Waits. The album is it's got a little cover damage here or whatever, but again, the record's in, near mint condition, so it plays wonderfully. And I'm really glad that I got this. Tom Waits, his voice takes a little getting used to. He kind of sounds like Dr. John played at the wrong speed, or what's that dog on the Mupp? Ralph the dog on Quaaludes or something. But yeah, Tom Waits, he is definitely one of a kind. It's probably not for everybody, but wow, what an emotional roller coaster this album is. It has, it has its funny moments, it has its tragic moments, and it's all done in his own style. He's got love songs on here to kind of start it off with, like Muriel and Never Talk to Strangers, which is a duet. And I'm listening to it, I'm like, is that Bette Midler? It is indeed Bette Midler he's singing with on this song. The whole thing is so atmospheric. You know how some albums sound like a bar at 2 a.m., a smoky bar? This album sounds like a bar after it's closed, and only the bartender's friends that are just hangers-on that are going to sleep in the bar are left. That's kind of what this album sounds like. Could be a scene from a John Sayles movie or a Jim Jarmusch movie or something like that. But yeah, great material on here, but you got to be in the mood for it. You got to pay attention to it. Songs like, it has this real emotional, like I said, emotional roller coaster thing. It has this real jarring moment on here at the end of side one, where it goes from this hilarious song called Jack and Neat, which is about all of these characters, this just rapid fire storytelling, which just paints this big scene of all these people doing all these outrageous things, just driving through the nightlife there, and you got the woman who's having an orgasm and honking the horn, you got the guy yelling out the window, the woman flipping off the moon for some reason and burning the map, and now he's got to guess where he's going, and all this stuff going on. The woman is sticking her fat ass halfway out the window. Okay, and then you get into that, you're like, wow, this is quite the nightlife here. And then it just jarringly goes into one of the saddest songs I've ever heard, called A Sight for Sore Eyes. Starts off with the melody of, I think, Old Lang Syne, and then goes into something that almost sounds like the first Noel. But it is this tragic thing about the death, and it just, oh my God. And then there's this one guy, he died with the radio on, which immediately made me think of something I used to think of. How's this? We're talking about morbid, like tragic. How's this for a morbid thought? So I was on the radio for 30 years. And this really applies more to like the 90s when a lot more people were listening to the radio. But so if you think of this is going to get dark here. But I think it's appropriate when talking about this album. Okay, when you think about people who have tragically passed away in car accidents. Okay. Now, how many of those people were listening to the radio at the time? Okay. Now, what percentage of those people were listening to the radio station I was on at the time over, like 3 decades? How many of those people, again, we're lowering the percentage here. Now, how many of those people were listening while I was on? And that would make, so the question then is, how many people have tragically died and I was the last living live voice that they heard talking to them? before they passed away. How's that for a morbid thought? Okay, Tom Waits, Foreign Affairs. I will be seeking out more Tom Waits. I really want to get his debut, but I never see it anywhere. I know it got just re-released not too long ago, but it's one of those 45 RPM double albums. I'm not into that, especially something as mellow as Tom Waits on the piano, and you don't want to keep getting up and flipping the record over or whatever. Next up, from 1978, Willie Nelson's Stardust. Now, I've had this album for decades, but not this version. I just want to show this because it's not an expensive record. It's not unbelievable that I found this for $3 or whatever, but a record doesn't have to be worth a lot to be great, case in point. But this one I had never seen before, with the picture of Willie Nelson in the middle of it. I was kind of like, what is that? Usually Stardust looks like this. You know, this is the popular version. And I'd never seen one with Willie Nelson's little Willie in the middle there. It's basically the same picture that's on the back. And this little banner here that says, you know, classic Nelson and, you know, millions sold over the years. And so, you know, this is so popular and successful, let's change the album cover, obviously. But, yeah, so produced by Booker T. Jones, of course, of Booker T. and the MGs. Multi-talented guy, just fascinating work along the way, not only as a musician, but as a producer. Not only did he produce this, but he produced all kinds of albums for all kinds of people. Produced Bill Withers' debut album, and that's pretty incredible. So, yeah, Willie Nelson's Stardust, Willie Nelson doing American Standards. I also wanted to show this because I just did that video about how awful cover albums are usually and tribute albums. And a couple of comments were like, well, Willie Nelson's Stardust is a great album. I really wasn't talking about albums like this. This is kind of like what I was talking about when I mentioned the blues. Like American Standards are the same way. I don't really consider those cover albums per se. It's a different kind of thing because American Standards and blues the songs have been thrown around and passed around so much, most people don't even know where they originated. There's a difference between that. I mean, most people don't know who did the original version of Blue Skies or Georgia on My Mind, or where those songs have been covered so many times in so many different popular versions. Hoagie Carmichael. But Willie Nelson's always doing tribute albums to songwriters, which I think, like I mentioned, the Victoria Williams Sweet Relief album is kind of different. You can appreciate a songwriter thing because you're doing a songwriter. Willie Nelson's done that. He's done the Chris Christopherson album. His latest album is a tribute to Harlan Howard. So he's always doing the songwriter tributes. I think there's a big difference between that and like just a Van Halen covers album or a Doors covers album or a Led Zeppelin covers album. When these songs are definitively Van Halen songs. Everybody knows that's a Van Halen song, and somebody's trying to do a cover of it. A bunch of covers of Van Halen songs. I don't think that works. This absolutely works. This is probably Willie Nelson's most popular album. I think this actually sold more than Red-Headed Stranger or Willie Nelson Live. So, but yeah, great album. Very, very mellow. Got to be in a mellow mood to listen to Willie Nelson's Stardust and fully appreciate that. Another $3 find, very, very cool, the Velvet Underground. Now this one has some cover damage. Again, the record inside looks like it's hardly ever even been played. Very shiny, no scuffs, no scratches. Sounds incredible. This VU album from the Velvet Underground is actually just, as it says here, a collection of previously unreleased recordings. This came out in the mid-'80s, and the recordings themselves are from 1969, most of them. I believe the Velvet Underground had these in the can and ready to go, but they were dropped from their label at the time when Mike Curb took over MGM of the wonderful Mike Curb Corporation or whatever that group was. And then, of course, he's major producer and record industry guy. But anyway, so yeah, I believe he had a lot to do with You Light Up My Life, but Debbie Boone. But yeah, this is a great little snapshot of what could have been the Velvet Underground's next album. It doesn't have any far out, bizarre, wild, weird stuff on here. There's no like 15-minute poems set to music and stuff like that. There's nothing harrowing on here like Heroin. It's just a collection of nice Velvet Underground songs. Nothing too crazy, nothing too way out. Just some groovy little tunes as, you know, things like Foggy Notion and, you know, Kicking Off Side 2. Not a groovy little, well, it's not exactly little, it's like 6 minutes long. But stuff like that. This has an early version of Andy's Chest on here, which would later appear as a more like slower, more realized version on the Lou Reed Transformer album. But yeah, early version of that, so you get to hear that as almost like a work in progress. But VU from the Velvet Underground, probably not going to be your best Velvet Underground release ever, but again, I'm glad I picked this up for a mere $3. And finally, it is Fela Kuti from Africa, known as Afrobeat. He had all kinds of albums out in the 70s that are extremely hard to find. Most of them were not even released in the U.S. until decades later. This one actually was released in the U.S. at the time it came out, which was 1981, which was only a couple of years after Mr. Kuti married 27 women at the same time. So that's what we're dealing with here. That's the kind of person we got on this album. Just 2 songs. The album is called Original Sufferhead, which I could understand that if you're married to 27 women at the same time, but then again, you kind of did that to yourself and to 27 women. The title track is on the first side. The second side is a song called Power Show. Kind of like a little more of a pedestrian sound for him, I think. We're into later years here. He would pass away a few years after this. But I never had a Fela Kuti album before. Always heard the name, always heard that he was wild and crazy and had these exotic Afro beats and just kind of intense music, and this really doesn't sound like that. I think he kind of mellowed out, like I said, later on, and this is from 81, so it's okay, but it didn't blow me away or anything like that. I don't think I'll probably really kind of investigate more of his music unless I stumble across, like for $3 at another estate sale, maybe an earlier album from like 1971 or something like that. But other than that, yeah, Fela Kuti. I now have a Fela Kuti album, and it's probably not one of his better ones. So that is it. I mean, I did, like I said, they had all kinds of other albums there that I already had. So, you know, I left a lot of those there for other guys to find for $3. And I said there was a cool guy that I know there that goes to record shows and whatever that actually got some Richard Hell and the Voidoids and some really cool stuff too, some Bob Marley and stuff. So I didn't like grab everything and run out like some people do at these estate sales. Just grab it all and just run off with it and then go into another room and then start looking through it. It's like, okay. But anyway, yeah, those are my $3 finds at the latest estate sale I went to. The big one, of course, is the Germs album. I still can't believe I got such an incredibly clean copy of that. Second pressing of that from 1979. So happy to finally have the Germs actual album on record. So, and great that the Tom Waits. I finally have a Tom Waits album. So that's pretty cool too. Yeah, thanks again for watching, and thanks for all the great Vinyl Community videos that the Vinyl Community is putting out. I'll continue to watch those and comment on those. And once again, thanks for watching. I am Robert Fithen. I'll talk to you again soon.